ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for being here today. We're really extremely pleased and honored to host you today within the Moroccan pavilion to speak about green hydrogen in Morocco, for Morocco, and from Morocco to the world. But in order to get there, we need to leverage some key challenges and also seize the opportunities. And with us today, we are really humbled and pleased to welcome some high-level guests, some friends of Morocco to speak about this key subject in order to see how we can decarbonize our economy through green hydrogen and its applications. So with me today, Mr. Frank Wouters, which is the chair and the co-founder of the MENA Hydrogen Alliance. My colleague and friend, our CEO, Mr. Badr Iken, CEO of Irisen and Vice President of the Green Hydrogen Cluster in Morocco. We are also pleased to host with us Mr. Moulin, CEO of AME. And also from Siemens, we are really happy and pleased to welcome Mr. Manuel Kuhn, Head of New Energy for the Middle East and Africa at Siemens Energy. From ENGIE, we are really happy to welcome Mr. Stéphane Gobert, Chief Strategy, Innovation and Customer Experience Office at ENGIE. From Switzerland, I think, we will be connected to Mr. Stéphane Aver, who is the President and the General Director of Acus. And last but not least, we are really pleased to welcome Roland Berger as well with us in the person of Mr. Alejandro Longuera. So without any delay, I would like to welcome Mr. Frank Wouters to give us his keynote speech. Thank you very much, Frank.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Samra. Of course, it's a pleasure to be here and to address this. Indeed, as you say, we are friends of Morocco, even though the topic of my speech will be a little bit about the GCC, but I think we can hint wherever Morocco applies. Indeed, my name is Frank Wouters. I'm chairing the MENA Hydrogen Alliance, but professionally, I work with Reliance Industries in India. I joined them 6 months ago, and we're also working on hydrogen, as part of the energy transition in India. Now, the Alliance is a fast-growing group of, mostly industrial actors, but we also include academia and government players, and we're basically serving three functions. We're a platform for people to come together and debate the topic. It's new to most of us. We are a source of knowledge to some extent, and we're the voice of the sector. So whenever we speak, it's a little bit less partial than, of course, if you represent a company. And these are some of the pieces of work that we've done. And of course, to your left, the North Africa-Europe Hydrogen Manifesto, together with Dr. Rashidi and Iken, Professor Van Wijk from Delft University, and myself. We visualized Europe in 2050 and conceptualized an energy situation that is 50% green electricity and 50% green hydrogen. And then if you do the numbers very quickly, you realize that that cannot be done in Europe. So you look, where do you get the hydrogen from? Morocco is of course, one of the countries where you would look towards. It's close by. You have a fantastic combination of solar and wind, and when you connect it through pipeline, also the transport cost is very low. We then had the opportunity to present this report to Executive Vice President of the European Commission, Frans Timmermans, over the summer of 2019. It was actually a pre-read because we published it in December, but he read it. So when in September, European Parliament asked him about what is your vision, he said, in my dream, Europe is going to import hydrogen from Morocco. So we knew he read it. We knew he read it. Now, 2050 is far away, so we then did the next step and looked at, okay, what do we have to do now? Because 2030 is a shorter time frame. And that led us to do the 2 × 40 gigawatt initiative. And last year, in the summer of 2020, when the European Commission launched the hydrogen strategy, this was actually part of it. And you may have seen the Fit for 55 package this summer, 15th of July. It has 2 sector targets for hydrogen, one 50% green hydrogen demand of existing hydrogen users, and 2.6% in the recast of the Renewable Energy Directive. They add up to something like 5 million tons. And for that you need 40 gigawatts. So again, one of the most influential pieces of work that I have done on a weekend, because this work is all done in my spare time, but it certainly had an impact, and I think that is one of the strong points of the MENA Hydrogen Alliance and the other organizations. Now, today I would like to focus on the GCC. We did a study together with Roland Berger, basically it shows what the impact can be of a hydrogen economy in the GCC countries. And first of all, I guess I'm preaching to the choir. Most of you know that the hydrogen is going to be a substantial part of the energy puzzle. I mean, these are figures that are based on the 18% of final energy demand by 2050, as laid out by the Hydrogen Council. There is a number of sectors: fuel cells for buildings, transportation, industrial feedstock, and in the power sector. So this is all basically not new. But what we have done is try to focus on what does that mean for the GCC. And if you then also look at the bigger picture, then there is going to be importers and exporters. Europe will remain, as we have seen in our study, a net importer also in the future, although you can, of course, have energy production within Europe. It is just going to be cheaper elsewhere to some extent, so you will import. Australia will export, Japan will import, Korea will import. So there's a new dynamic in terms of who will supply and who will buy. And then if you look at what that means for the GCC region, this region has ample land, fantastic sunshine, as we can all see when we go outside. There is places with good wind also. In Egypt, well, that's not GCC, but on the other side of the Red Sea, in the northwestern corner of Saudi Arabia, you also have complementary wind, so solar and wind, like you have in Morocco. So you can actually really have long, high load factors for electrolyzers, which leads to low cost of hydrogen. That is something that I think this region can work on. Also because it's a central energy player, geographically well located between markets in the east of Asia, as well as Europe, and infrastructure in terms of people, in terms of physical infrastructure, all of that makes it a sort of a natural fit for this region beyond hydrocarbons. And it can also be a job creator. I think this is important. Always when we talk to politicians, this is one of the questions. What does it mean? Is it just tech or is it just money? No, it's also the creation of jobs. Up to almost 1 million jobs can be created in this sector in the region. And then depending on the value chain, these are actually really interesting jobs. It's not just unskilled workers, it's also skilled workers and academic staff. Then there's a number of things that need to be done. I mean, these things, they don't happen just like that. So there is a number of things that we have to work on. And these are some of the elements that we're proposing. We need to work on regulation. We can also conceive green hydrogen valleys. That is a concept that is basically blossoming in many countries with hydrogen strategies. We do think that we need to work together on R&D. This is something that the region has focus on, but of course there's other regions with a lot of capacity and then human capabilities. We need to train more people in this future tech. Yeah, this is it in a nutshell. I'm not sure, I probably skipped the number, but it can actually be $200 billion industry, which is substantial. And I mean, the basic assumption why we got to that number is that we've basically estimated the demand. Where is a market that is natural for this region, which is Europe, but to some extent also East Asia, and then we just assumed a certain market percentage. Now, if you then look at Morocco, so for example, Europe, we could be between 10 and 30% share from this region. But Morocco is a competitor, because I don't think you have worse conditions than the GCC. So this is an interesting race, and it's a new market that I think is also equally important and relevant for the Kingdom of Morocco. Thank you very much. And of course, the report is available on our website. You can download it and read the details.
Thank you very much, Frank. I would probably save the questions, given the time, to the Q&A session, if you may. Thank you very much for your talk. Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. I would like to welcome Mr. Badi Iken to give us an insight about hydrogen developments in Morocco. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Si Samir. Dear friends and colleagues, I'm very glad and very honored to be here today and to have the opportunity to share with you what we are doing and how we would like to contribute to develop this new sector. And happy to have you, because there are a lot of game changers, and I recognize a lot of game changers in this room. I would like to take this opportunity to share with you very briefly some information about Irisen. Very brief. Irisen is a funding agency for applied R&D projects and innovation projects, and we are developing R&D infrastructures to build bridges between universities and the private sector and the industry. And slowly we think we would like to become as innovation highways between the universities and the industry. We have a funding agency. We are not only supporting through funding, but we are as well supporting through our experts and R&D facilities. And we have a lot of calls, and I'm very glad to announce that by the beginning of next year, we will have one specific call for a green hydrogen. We have national calls, bilateral calls, as well as multilateral call for proposals. The second mission of Irisen is to support our energy transition through R&D and through those highways of innovation, and there are a lot of platforms. The first one is the Green Energy Park, dedicated to solar energy, different technologies. The second one is the Green and Smart Building Park, dedicated to the city of tomorrow, of the Moroccan and African city of tomorrow, including green buildings, smart grids, and e-mobility. We're as well glad to launch in a few months the Agro-Energetic Valley R&D platform dedicated to energy applications, energy needs in the field of agriculture and for the agriculture sector. And we are preparing now Green H2A, green hydrogen and application platform. And what's about then, and maybe then I would like to mention that we have as well one R&D platform in the Ivory Coast in Côte d'Ivoire, Green Energy Park Maroc Côte d'Ivoire, which would be finished before the end of this year. And what's about then green hydrogen, the topic of today? We think today in Morocco, and we had the opportunity through the different studies, and I have to thank Frank mentioning then the study with DII, that we recognized the huge need. When we speak about then more than 7,000 terawatt-hour per year, it means there is no competition. There is a need to build clusters and to build more partnerships to develop this important sector. We think in Morocco, and we know that we have a high renewable energy potential. We have a very strong commitment of our highest authority. We have as well successful deployment of huge power plants, solar energy, wind power. We have R&D, and this is why at the beginning I mentioned and I gave some example about the R&D platforms which we developed. We have important industries in the field of the chemical industry as well. When we speak about green hydrogen, it means renewable energy as well as chemical industry and transformation industry. And we have a very important industry. And of course, last but not least, the connectivity between North Africa, Africa, and Europe. And this is a huge opportunity for us. There are a lot of studies. One of the first studies of the World Energy Council Germany was to identify very important countries, and I think that Morocco will play an important role as a hyped one. And we started 3 years ago with different studies. We conducted technology studies, market studies. We wanted them to know about the maturity of the technologies. Do we speak about topics for tomorrow, topics for the day after tomorrow? It was very important to conduct different studies with partners. And at the end, with economists, we prepared our roadmap. Today, this roadmap is already then launched, and we would be then able then to share with you the green hydrogen, the Moroccan green hydrogen roadmap. And this roadmap, and yeah, it's maybe then important to mention as well that our energy ministry set up a national commission for hydrogen with the different important key actors of the field of energy, ministries and agencies and R&D institutions. And what are the pillars of the green hydrogen strategy in Morocco? Like Frank mentioned, there are a lot of topics which we have to address to contribute to the development and deployment of this new sector. And for us, it's important then to work on the master plan for infrastructures, and we're working on this topic. The idea was as well to build the R&D cluster, and we decided to merge both the industrial cluster with the R&D cluster, and my colleague Saïd Moulin will speak about then the green hydrogen, Moroccan green hydrogen cluster as well. And there are a lot of important aspects to work on the incentives to develop the domestic market, to work on standards, to prepare the export, and so on. And here you have the market potential for Morocco. We think that in the short term, we will have an opportunity to export, 2/3 for the export, and starting by the derivative of green hydrogen, by ammonia. Later on, it would be as well methanol, synthetic fuels, not for the domestic market, but for the export, and then later on hydrogen for the domestic market as well as for the export for the different sectors. And here, I'm sorry that I missed one slide, but it's important to mention then some numbers. For the midterm, we will have an objective, and we have an objective by 2030 of 8 gigawatt. I'm speaking about then reference case, 8 gigawatt of green hydrogen projects. By 2040, it would be then 20 gigawatt, and by 2050, more than 80 gigawatt. And this is a reference case. If we have an optimistic case, this would be then the double of those numbers. What are the ongoing pilot projects? I mentioned before, we have the R&D platforms, like a bridge between the universities and the industry. And this is then the new one, which would be then launched by the beginning of January 2022. And the idea is to compare different electrolyzer technologies, PEM, alkaline, high temperatures, but to have a lot of pilot projects like we did for solar energy and like we did for the other topics. We will have one green ammonia pilot project starting as well by the beginning of next year. We will have a green methanol platform, a power-to-liquid platform to have the production of synthetic kerosene and synthetic diesel. And of course, the idea is to have a lot of labs to develop new applications like the hydrogen mobility for the transport. This is the first project. This is the green ammonia project with a capacity of 4 megawatt. The second one is the project of power to liquid with the smaller capacity of 1 megawatt. The idea is really then to test and then to start with renewable energy up to the synthetic then fuels. We have a project to store the energy. We are now conducting the pre-feasibility study, and next year we will start with the project to store hydrogen in salt caverns. And last but not least, it's important to mention that we have a lot of projects to address not only technological aspects, but as well to address other important aspects which will help us to develop this new economy with different partners. In this case, for this project, MENA-Link, we have Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Turkey, and Germany. And as you mentioned, Frank, we will have importers and exporters, and it's very important then to work together and to develop such kind of alliances and partnerships and clusters, not only regarding then the different technologies as well regarding the industrial integration. There is clearly then a huge need. And this is the position of the green hydrogen and application platform. We would be the real bridge between all the small capacities and labs to move from the megawatt to the gigawatt. For us, we think we need such kind of facilities, and this would be then installed by the beginning of next year. We're speaking about the megawatts, and the target is then to go later on to gigawatts. Yeah, this is what I wanted then to share with you. Last but not least, we're organizing by the beginning of December this year the World Power to X Summit during 3 days, and we would be very happy then to have you participating during the World Power to X Summit. We're addressing a lot of different topics and aspects which I mentioned before, and then the idea is then to work together to make this dream happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So now, without any further ado, I would like to welcome Mr. Moulin to speak a little bit about his vision of the agency IME on decarbonizing the economy, mainly the industry, through hydrogen. Thank you very much, Mr. Moulin. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed for this invitation. And I would like to say that I'm very glad because a few years ago we were talking about DII for exporting electricity, green electricity to Europe. Now we're talking about two things. Exporting still green electricity to Europe, but also green hydrogen in the near future. Why? Because we believe that today there's a huge, huge opportunity. You mentioned Frank, 1 million jobs, $200 billion of projects, of investment needed in this field. And of course, decarbonization is not anymore an issue. It's something that we have to start right now. And we start in the few months ago to change a little bit our institutions in Morocco, and especially because we had this energy transition as national priority. It's at the highest level of the state. The King's message was very clear on our sustainable development strategy. It's not only one project, it's the national strategy for sustainable development, including all the energy transition, including energy efficiency, including sustainable mobility, including, of course, decarbonization of the industry, decarbonization of the economy. And we have two objectives today. One is to reach 20% of energy efficiency in 2030, and of course, renewables to 52%. But when you're talking about green economy, when we changed what we changed a few months ago is the agency is is now linked to the Department of Industry, Trade, Green and Digital Economy. We have the Department of Energy and Mines and Environment, and we have the Department of Industry and Green Economy. And that's why there is this change today, but the link between, as you saw when Badr mentioned all the actors in the green hydrogen, you have both ministries. One thing is that also what we start to say that we have to decrease also our energy dependence. For a country like Morocco, why we are really ready, because it's not only linked to climate, it's also linked to economy. And what we started in the renewables, with hydrogen, it will be much, much more clear. Of course, we are working with different actors, and the new missions of AME is to have the development of a sustainable mobility, clean production in the field of industry, and the strengthening of energy efficiency. That's the new decree linked to the agency. When you're talking about sustainable mobility, you're talking also about hydrogen for mobility. When you're talking about clean production in the field of industry, decarbonization of the industry, you're talking about hydrogen for some sectors like the steel industry, like the fertilizing industry, as it was mentioned before, but many industries, if they want to be carbon neutral. And OCP, the world leading fertilizer company, wants to be carbon neutral in 2040. 88% of its electricity is already coming from renewables today. And they're looking for hydrogen, for green ammonia, for reaching this, also for reaching this natural carbon objective. So, of course, we are linked to the Sustainable Development Goals. We are here at this event, and in this, we should keep in mind that the Sustainable Development Goals are our main objectives. And that's why, for agriculture, for energy efficiency, for resilient and sustainable cities, but also for combating climate change, all those points are linked to what we're talking about today. And the green transition to the Moroccan economy, we have many points, but what we are looking for here is, of course, not only to decarbonize in the industry, but that the industry can also be much more competitive. And it's possible today, because the price of renewables are becoming cheaper and cheaper. And today, why some industry are using more and more renewables in Morocco, it's because they're also decreasing the energy bill. It's not only decreasing the emissions, but decreasing the energy bill. So it's very important to look at this. Another point, Europe is preparing the border carbon tax. 65% of our export is to Europe. So all the industries, and we started already since 1 year now, automotive industry, aeronautic industry, textile industry, they're starting their decarbonization, knowing what's going on, what's going to happen for as a new carbon footprint for products non-barrier tariff. So when talking about industrial decarbonization, we are, of course, helping today different sectors to start by doing energy efficiency, then by using renewables, then by also having this circular economy for their waste, but also in some sectors, hydrogen, and some are already using hydrogen, gray hydrogen today. How they should start by switching to green hydrogen. What's going to happen with OCP is amazing, because we are a huge importer of ammonia today. And to produce green ammonia in Morocco with renewables will change completely the economy of the projects. So it's something that is not only environmental friendly, but it's economically. Really, what's the point is today is for those companies is something that will really, they will become much more competitive. So this is the audit. Natural transition, well, what we start to do for, we also need some new regulation. And what we're talking about in the cluster, but also for the agency, is not to act for sensibilization. It's also to look at all the regulation that we have to change to accelerate this transition. And we have new norms for companies concerning their, with an obligatory audit for their, when they're consuming more than 1,500 TOE per annum. ISO 50001, with the UNIDO, we have a program for all companies to be certified for that. And also, of course, we are looking at minimum energy performance standards and technical economic feasibility of enhanced capital allowances. But one thing, that all the legislation that we should add in the future because of hydrogen and the new approach of hydrogen for safety for hydrogen and all the points linked to green hydrogen, we have to look at all the regulation and the legislation that we have to install in the country. We are also today, we developed a war room for the green economy, where all sectors are concerned, but also, of course, two clusters. One is the solar cluster, but the hydrogen clusters today are concerned by this war room, where we are having all the actors and helping for any investment in this field, industry investment, any help for regulation, any help for norms, any help for land for the project, and all those points are discussed for any projects. Today, of course, the projects are more linked to the circular economy, to energy efficiency, or to renewables. I hope very soon we'll see some hydrogen projects becoming and starting to be supported by this war room green economy. of course, all those points that I mentioned, but we believe that all sectors are concerned. We know that Europe is starting 2023 for the carbon border tax, but for steel, for cement, for fertilizing, but we are sure that in the future all sectors will be concerned. That's why all sectors are concerned about this decarbonization, and when they will have to use more green hydrogen in the future. So this is for the green economy. Well, as I mentioned, we have key partners in this war room, but all the departments, but also all the agencies, but also the approach with universities for training, for capacity building. It's very important. I have another hat, thanks to my friend Badr, and I'm involved in the cluster of green hydrogen. Because we believe that all sectors, and in this cluster, we have all actors, the public ones, the private ones, the universities, everyone is concerned, and the private companies, and I know that many private companies working in the world on hydrogen, also they have offices in Morocco, but in the region, and we believe that we can succeed and reach our objectives only if we work all together. And that's why this cluster can play a role very important with all these sectors. You look at all the ministries, all the agencies, and all the partners in this field, because we believe when you have all those sectors, when you have all those actors, we can reach what we want to say, and we can start, even for those who are already looking at their market. When I talk to OCP, but also Maghreb Steel, all those who are already using hydrogen today, how they can start very quickly to use members. And you look at all the members of this cluster. We have now a team in different committees. You have all the information on our website. There's a website dedicated to this green hydrogen cluster. And thanks to all the actors, and we have different meetings today on this field, and to show that when we work all together, we can reach quickly and have all the objective reached very soon. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Simon, for the interesting presentation. Now I would like to welcome my friend Manuel Kuhn from Siemens Energy, which is also a very strong partner of Morocco. We are really proud to host one of the wind blades factories of Siemens in Morocco, and also to have Siemens in some renewable energy projects. Would like also to see your insight from the electrolysis point of view, how to scale up this industry. Thank you very much, Manuel.
First of all, I want to commend all the Moroccans in the room for this beautiful pavilion. It's really nice, and it feels like in Morocco. Yeah, it's nice. I would like to take you quickly on a journey through a view from an electrolyzer's developer's perspective, and just want to show you what we do at Siemens Energy. So, first of all, we have split the Siemens company into a couple of. So Siemens Energy is now stock listed and a company by itself. So we also made an own purpose and mission, and since it's only 1 year ago, it's always good to repeat. Yeah, the idea is of energizing society, and the requirements of the societies are changing. Hence, the answers from an energy perspective are changing, and we have created for us a clear vision that there are 3 main topics that we need to pursue, and they touch the existing, let's call it the conventional portfolio that Siemens Energy can provide, but it also touches the topic of hydrogen, and you will find hydrogen in all of these 3 main areas, which is the low or zero emission power generation. Hydrogen can play a role. The topic of transport and electricity and storage, obviously hydrogen plays a role, but also in reducing the CO2 footprint and the energy consumption of industrial processes. So this is also something where we will find electrolyzer technology sooner or later. So we think in these big 3 topics of applications. That's also how we set us up. Now, switching fast forward into what we're doing here in the UAE, a fair share of the audience has been at our plant already. I just want to quickly run you through. So what you have seen and others might see, or at least hear about, is a plant that we have set up for the purpose of having it ready for the expo. And that it was a 4-year journey, started 2017. And sometimes it's good to remind, in 2017, when we came and said we will build a hydrogen plant in Dubai, we had to convince people of the what for. Today, we are asking questions like, is it expensive? What capacity do you have? And so on. But today, we are not busy anymore in convincing people that it's necessary. But 2017, I had an uphill battle to convince people that this is something that we actually need. And it took us until today. We integrated the system in March. This year, we could have been a little bit faster, but COVID didn't let us. So we would have been ready also if the expo had started a year ago. But we are running now since March, very stable, knock on wood. And why is this so important for us? Because it's the first time that we brought an electrolyzer in Middle Eastern ambient environment, which would be the same for Morocco, for example. And there are a few things that we need to consider. It's about safety, it's about cooling, it's about logistics. And to give you one war story, we produced this unit in October 19. It arrived in Jebel Ali in November 19. We placed it on the site in December 19. And then we had it sitting there for 14 months and nobody touched it. And we had no idea what this would do to the membranes. Because still we produce so little units that the membranes have to be tested wet. So we have to test 100% before they leave the factory. So the membranes are wet, we put it on a ship, and then we let it sit 14 months in Dubai desert, and we had absolutely no idea what happens when we switch it on. So, so these are the things why you make pilots, yeah? Because you don't want to try this out in a 100 megawatt project. So this is now the unit. It's running under also with our O&M team. We will run it for 3 years, then we will hand it over completely to Deva. And it's embedded in Deva's R&D park. So once the expo is over, we currently run it in as most stable condition as possible because we want to show that it works. And right now, reliability is for us the key aspect, but sooner or later, the focus will also shift into trying out new things and see what happens, for example, yeah, if you increase the intermittency, topics like this. So what this plant is actually doing, so this is the version without the roof. So we basically build a big battery, yeah? And everybody in the room knows using hydrogen for energy storage is maybe not the smartest thing you can do, but it is a conceivable and doable thing that you could do in the first step. Because most of the other plants that you will see will have this minus the gas motor and then something else. So in order to build a closed system, we have an electrolyzer producing hydrogen, we fill up the tank, the electrolyzer runs until the tank is full or the sun goes down. The moment the sun goes down, we switch into the other mode, and then we consume the hydrogen in the gas motor, produce electricity, feed it back into the grid until either the sun goes up or the tank runs empty, and then the whole thing starts from the beginning. So this is basically a closed system. You could imaginary take it and put it on an island and let it run. So this is where we are, and it also shows a bit our thinking, because we say, in order to achieve the visions of 2030 and 40 and 50, we have to do the first steps and we have to do them right. And that is something I want to take with you. So 1995, that's when the electrolyzer at Siemens was still in the lab. 2011, it was still in the lab. 2015, we started to install what we call the Sealizer 200. That's the unit we have here in Dubai. 2018, we brought the next bigger PEM cell into the market. And that's to increase the production and get into the hundreds of megawatt scale, it's basically about the size of the membrane. So what we did is, compared to the 2015 model to the 2018 model, we took the pressure away, but increased the cell size a lot. So that improves the output. Now there will be next steps again, I'll talk about it in a second. So 2019, we installed this electrolyzer in a steel plant from First Alpine in Linz. And in 2020, and I know some of you will have questions about this topic. I spared Power to X because I know the questions will come. But in 2020, in December, we announced a project in Chile, which is a Power to Liquid project. So this one has, again, the same core technology, what we have here in Dubai. Take the gas motor, put the synthesis route, so we have hydrogen to methanol and methanol to gasoline. So that's a gasoline plant, MTG, and we just had groundbreaking 4 weeks ago. So construction started now, but we are still in a megawatt size, pretty much in line with what you also have shown now for Morocco. So last picture, where are we going? For us, the next step is applying this piece of equipment. That's the 17.5 megawatt electrolyzer with the large PEM cell. So if you take the technology that is in Linz, this one in Linz has now 10,000 operating hours. As a matter of fact, we already ran 3 generations of membrane there, because of course we keep improving. So we exchange them, but we have 10,000 hours on the Sealizer 300 in Linz. We have 160,000 hours roughly on the Sealizer 200, where now also the one here in Dubai starts paying in. And yeah, the Linz version looks like this. So you have a bit of a feeling how these units look like. One of the black boxes, this one's there, yeah. That's where the membrane is. So the membrane is roughly as big as a person. So this is something, it would fill this room nicely. But still, by getting the cell size up, we basically get the production capacity per built square meters up as well. And that's what will enable us to finally address the tens and hundreds of megawatt ranges. Will we address the gigawatt with this product? I don't think so. With the next one, because there will be other topics to be solved. I think this is up for the discussion later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manuel. Thank you very much. Really insightful, and I will give the questions to the Q&A session. Thank you very much. Now I would like to welcome Mr. Stéphane Gobert, who is representing ENGIE. ENGIE has also a particularity, which is having the DNA of a global integrator of the present on the whole chain value. So we would like to see your insight on this subject. Thank you very much, Stéphane.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Thanks for welcoming me to your beautiful pavilion. I hope you have a pleasant expo. I'll be very brief on ENGIE. I just prepared a few slides. I think it would be more interesting to discuss around the questions. So the title was Key Decarbonize, is green hydrogen key to decarbonize the economy, with the question mark. Obviously, we removed the question mark because the answer is very clear to ENGIE. We've been in the field for 4 to 5 years now and interacting with some of you. We've been present in Morocco for quite some time as well. We have, let's say, conventional means to produce power in the country, and we have also renewable means to produce energy. And as I've seen some of my colleagues in your slide, Mr. Mikel is interacting with you on the next step for us, which could be to produce hydrogen. So for those who don't know ENGIE, I have just one slide, which is the purpose for ENGIE was really to transform itself and become a leader in the energy transition. About 5 to 6 years ago, we're coming from a very historical background in the power industry, more than 200 years in various conventional means to produce an energy and to transport and distribute energy, gas, electricity in all its form. So more recently, we really embark into the transformation of the market. And through decarbonization, digitalization, and decentralization, we are planning to plan and to reach to our goals. Decentralization is probably the good word for the future of hydrogen. In terms of hydrogen, our only focus is renewable hydrogen. You have seen everywhere, and especially even in the GCC, talks about blue, purple, yellow, all kind of hydrogen. ENGIE is really focusing purely on renewable, and we believe to be a front runner in the development of large-scale projects. I'll come back to this to give you a bit of an insight of what we are doing at the moment, but we believe that large-scale economy will enable to really engage further into the energy transition that I mentioned earlier. So for us, the key success factor really to a rapid development is threefold. I think you've been analyzing this yourselves, but we really need to work even further on advocacy, and thanks to Mr. Water and all of you engage in various lobbying and discussions, because there's a key fact for us when we select a place where we want to invest and develop projects, subsidies, support from governments, clear roadmaps from government, collaboration, because we've seen through the different presentations there's a lot of collaboration. It's not going to happen just from one region of a country or within a single country. We're talking about export, imports, decarbonization roadmaps from some industries with the support from other industries. So really that's a key focus for us. The second one is the demand. I think we are all ready to invest now. For the last, let's say, 12 months, we've been working on that for the last 5 years, and the last 12 months we've finally get to see RFPs, which was not happening before, so we get really requests for pricing. But when we come to the reality of the figures and the math, there's still a bit of a reluctance. But the demand is changing. It's activated by a lot of commitment from industries, especially in Europe, in Asia, and the States, probably in the near future, to decarbonize sometimes fully their portfolio. But we believe also that countries, they have to set their own targets, which is not the case everywhere still. And finally, we have really to integrate hydrogen everywhere, continue to decarbonize the energy system, and I think we'll talk about this in the next topic. So for us, a bit of key figures on what we are doing. So at the moment, NG is busy with around 70 projects underway around the world. I'll give you a glimpse of that just after. 10 countries, we have around 200 experts in green hydrogen. We developed our own global business unit, working around the globe. We have now, after 4 or 5 years, established our 3 priorities. In this part of the world, I'm part of the headquarters based in Dubai for the AMEA region, so it's Africa, Middle East, and Asia. And we are focusing today on Australia, obviously. We have 2 projects ongoing there. We have projects in South Africa, so we're also focusing on a potential hydrogen valley in South Africa. A lot of mining industry and that are willing to decarbonize for the simple reason that now the lenders are pushing the mining and other industrials to decarbonize as quick as possible if they still want to have access to funds. So we also discussing for the northern region of Africa, mainly Morocco, Egypt. We are yet to see materialization of the project, but we see a good demand. And finally, the GCC, it's a key question. It's every day there's another MOU, another news, another coalition and alliance popping up. So we are looking at opportunities, looking at the low cost of renewables, opportunities to export to Asia and to Europe, and maybe tackle on a couple of subsidies that are provided by the European Union. We have set very ambitious targets. We want to reach 4 gigawatts of green hydrogen by 2030, knowing that I think the biggest project today is about 30 megawatts in Germany, commercial. So we are starting from very small projects. We have to scale, we have to phase. We're starting with the project in South Africa, for example, for the mining industry, it's about 3 to 4 megawatts. But the next phase is about 150 megawatts, so it's moving fast. But it's not only about production of green hydrogen, we also target in the transmission of hydrogen, so about 700 kilometers of transmission pipeline to be ready by 2030. We also want to be involved. We're already supplying refueling stations, so we have also an ambition for more than 100 refueling stations of hydrogen to be installed by 2025. And storage, we have a company specialized in gas storage, which is also moving towards green gas storage, and we hope to reach some significant target. Just to show you the current projects that we are developing in various states, obviously. It could be a feasibility study, a FEED, or construction, and soon to be operation. We are going to commission our project Rhino that you can see at the bottom in South Africa by end of the year, which is a very interesting case. It is going to supply green hydrogen for mining trucks. So in association with the Anglo-American, they are redeveloping their fleet of trucks to, those are the huge mining fleet, mining trucks, you know, polluting exclusively. So we are going to produce and supply green hydrogen for the fleet. Today it's one truck, and the next phase is for the entire fleet, 40 trucks, and hopefully we can replicate to other mines that they have in the world. We have also a couple of projects in Australia, which is under our, let's say, perimeter, which is hydrogen to green ammonia with Yara, and also injection of hydrogen into the distribution network in Yara. The other one is in Uri. A lot of projects in Europe and in Chile, so you will recognize the hotspots where you have good renewables, and also the good spots where you have subsidies from governments that can make it viable today. So that's it for me. I'll be ready for questions and further discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stefan, for sharing such valuable information. Now I would like to welcome virtually Mr. Stefan Aver, who will be intervening via Zoom platform. I don't know if he's already, normally he's already connected. I'd like to ask just the...
Hello, Samir.
Hello.
You hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you very well, but we cannot see you. I don't know if we can see him just for a minute. At least we see your picture. Okay, perfect. We have you. Can you see us, okay. Stefan?
Hello. Thank you so much for welcoming me and welcome Accuse today. I'm so sorry to be, because it was not possible for me to be with you in Dubai, but I would like to say hello to Said and Bad also, and I hope to see you soon in Morocco during the next trip. Accuse is a Swiss company, and we are specialized in the hydrogen domain with 3 business units. The first one is the storage system. The second is the fuel cell system, and the third is INAT. INAT is a company specialized in the natural hydrogen. And today I would like to talk about natural hydrogen because it's a new paradigm, it's the new equation probably for the hydrogen domain in general and for the energy transition. What is the promise, in fact? And Samia, I don't manage the slide. I don't know where you are. Do you hear me? No? Yes?
We can hear you, Stefan. You can proceed. We will try to plug the slides. Can we get back to the presentation, please? Thank you.
What do you want? I can share the slide, or you manage the slide directly?
I think it's okay. We can manage the slide from our side.
Let me know.
Okay.
Comme vous voulez. Hein. Je peux faire.
We see the slides, Stefan. You can go on.
Me, I don't see the slide now.
Well, at the first slide, probably the next slide, please.
Yes,
Yeah.
the future is now. Is the second.
Exactly.
But
Yes.
just okay. Just to tell you, the natural hydrogen is the new natural resource from the ground, and the question is why and how we can build and we can get this new resource. It's the case in Mali today with 25 wells. And of course, we have a big opportunity in Africa and especially in Morocco. And just next slide, please. Why is possible? Because the geological situation is very, very amazing in Africa. And it's the case also in Morocco. And we have a situation very, very famous for this continent. But it's the case also for other continents, like in Australia, like in South America, a little in North America, and in Europe also, in Russia. We have a very a good situation to explore and to get this new research. Alors, just next slide and next slide. You can jump the next. It's the 25% of African surfaces. You can see on this slide the map, the African map. Africa is a giant cratonic. Cratonic is the good condition to get this resource. Next slide, please. But the question is, what is this new business model for this new resource? And you can see on these pictures the geological photography, and we can look at the anomaly in terms of surface, and we can find like this resource. And just to next slide, please. Of course, for Africa, the challenge is to build a new model, and the new business model is specially adapted to the industrial transformation, like ammonia and to fertilizer, and it's the case in Morocco, and it's the case in Africa. Why? Because next slide, please. Why? Because the natural hydrogen provide a new equation in the transition, in the energy transition, because low capex, low opex, low transportation cost, and we can get a cost from the well at 50 cents per kilo, and it's very, very competitive. It's very attractive. Next slide, please. Just to tell you, thank you for your attention, and of course, I'm available to answer to your question.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Thank you. I would like now to thank our last guest speaker, Alejandro from Roland Berger, to speak about the green hydrogen economy from the point of view of a consultancy firm. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the host for putting together such a nice event. Today, I would like to just say two things. One, a quick introduction to Roland Berger and what do we do here, and then a quick update of our point of view about green hydrogen in the region. Okay, Roland Berger introduction. We are the only consulting firm with a German origin. I see many German faces here, so it's nice. We have expertise in the hydrogen value chain across the whole, from the renewable production to hydrogen production, conversion, transportation, and end consumption. And we have done very different projects across all of these sectors. In our experience, we have touched from both the public and private sector. We have projects with most of the key hydrogen players across the globe, and also especially in the region. And on the end users, we have touched the three main blocks: mobility, industry, and energy. As Frank very well explained before, we have collaborated in a hydrogen paper for the region to assess the potential in the GCC region. We have other publications that we invite you to have a look at them. And in the next 1 or 2 months, we will present one of our last reports regarding hydrogen transport. That would be very interesting, especially for a region like GCC or MENA, in which a big part of the cost is the transportation. And we were discussing before what would happen with the transportation to enable the region, and I think that's a key discussion. What's our outlook on green hydrogen in the MENA region? First of all, we have here a summary of the hydrogen production in different regions. Obviously, we could put more costs all across the globe, but we see that GCC is very well positioned to sell to both in Asian and European market. That's also true for Morocco. The main issue, as we were saying before, is the transport. And why is GCC and Morocco and the rest of MENA region very well positioned? One, because there's an abundance of solar and wind power. In UAE we have more solar, in other regions we have also wind. Two, there's a strong potential backing from the political side. We have collaborated in many projects in Emirates, Saudi and Oman, also in Egypt, and we see a strong support from the government to make this happen. And from what I'm seeing today in Morocco, it's not different in that sense, especially because there's a strong interest to diversify towards other sectors. Third, especially in the GCC, also a little bit in North Africa, but especially in GCC, there's a very strong experience in oil and gas, and that gives capabilities and knowledge about how to export energy. So that positions very well the region in the hydrogen market. With all of this in mind, we are seeing a lot of projects across the MENA region on the hydrogen side. Morocco, Algeria, Egypt, in Saudi Arabia with NEOM. In UAE, we have put 2, but there are 4 or 5 projects. TACA, we have the demonstrator project in Abu Dhabi with Siemens, Mazda, and the rest of the colleagues. In Oman, we are collaborating in some of the projects. So we see a very strong push towards developing hydrogen in the region. The question here now is who and how is going to take the lead. That's not clear yet. And we see that this huge growth, and by the way, I'm going really quick because I don't have much time, and as we will see later, we can give you more details if required. But for us, one of the key messages that we wanted to deliver today is that this shouldn't be a chance in which the countries invest money, companies come, do the projects, and they go. We see a huge potential of localization of this growth. In the renewable side, it's a very relevant part of the value chain, but it's not easy competing with especially Asian competitors. So to produce locally the modules of solar, we don't see it as a possibility. The assembly, that's another issue. That we could get that, but that's a small part of the value chain. On the electrolysis, we think that's a very different picture. It's not the most relevant part of the value chain in the future. Right now, yes, in the future, not so much, because we expect a decrease. But we see that right now, we heard some days ago, Chokri mentioned in the top show discussion that it could be a possibility installing outside of Europe, and we see it makes a lot of sense, producing the electrolyzers close to the demand. And on the storage side, the share is not that relevant, the cost is not that relevant, so we wouldn't concentrate there. But for Morocco and the rest of the GCC countries, we strongly suggest that they try to localize a big part of that growth. And just to close, I mean perhaps a little bit too fast, we have collaborated with Frank, Valeria, and Cornelius of the II in the document of the potential for green hydrogen in the GCC region. In this, we have collaborated with many of the companies, many of us. I see you here. Thank you very much for your support to all of you. I'm happy to discuss in more detail any point that you would like. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alejandro. Thank you to all the speakers. And thank you especially to have saved us some time to the discussion, even if we have started a little bit late. So what we would like to do now is probably to either invite the or just around the chairs in order to have a sort of discussion because of the limitations that we have in the venue, and to make it sort of open discussion. It's not really that's corporate, but it's about open innovation and open discussions. I think that would be better. We won't be able, unfortunately, to broadcast live, but I think we'll have the sound for the speakers. So I don't know. First of all, without any or triggering the discussion, I don't know if the audience here has a or have a question for one or the other speakers. Yeah, please go ahead. Microphone.
Chetin Azikol from ThyssenKrupp. A figure was given for as an objective for the hydrogen price, 50 cents per kilogram, as an objective. So how realistic is this number? How concrete? What do we know about that?
I think you are mentioning the natural hydrogen.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
So this is a question for Stefan. Stefan, are you still with us?
And where is the number coming from?
So probably while waiting for Stefan to answer us, probably to take another. Stefan, can you hear us?
Yes.
So that was a question for you, Stefan, about how you could achieve possibly 50 euro or dollar cents per kilogram of hydrogen, and where it will come from.
Yes. Do you hear me now?
Yeah,
okay?
Yeah, perfectly, clearly.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, it's not an objective.
You can carry on.
Okay, just to tell you, no, it's not an objective. It's the reality today. In Mali, there is 25 wells, and the first one had started 10 years ago, and today, after 10 years, we get the hydrogen at 50 cents per kilogram. Okay. Is the reality. Why? Because the capex is very low, and the opex too. And of course, if you don't need to transport the hydrogen by pipeline or trucks, for example, and you can transform the hydrogen directly, for example, in ammonia locally. In this case, you can get an hydrogen very cheap and clean hydrogen, very green hydrogen, more than green, and we can provide a new equation for the industry and for the countries, especially for African countries.
Yeah. Yes. There is another pop-up question about this again, Stefan. Since now you are speaking about the cost, so this is the cost to produce natural hydrogen on site. What about the reserves, the size of the reserves worldwide? Do you think that because it would be the same scheme as fossil fuel, even if it's clean, but it would be not infinite or not sustainable, at least?
Alors, please, yes, I will try shortly to the question because it's a very large question. But at the beginning, please forget the oil model and the natural gas model. Okay, it's not the same thing. It's not the same geology. It's not the same situation in terms of resource. The natural hydrogen, after 10 years, the natural hydrogen is renewable around 10 years. Why we know that? Because after 10 years, we get the same level of pressure in the well, and the pressure never down. And why? Because the system, the hydrogen system in the ground, produce in continue the hydrogen like an electrolyzer, but the electrolyzer is the planet. And it's the case in Brazil, it's the case in USA, it's the case in Russia, it will be the case in Australia, and it's the case in Africa, especially in Mali, and we hope it will be the case in Morocco, of course.
Okay, thank you. We are pleased to learn such information about natural hydrogen. I don't know if there is other questions to the other panelists. Yes, please.
It's Alexander Just with the ThyssenKrupp as well. So a question for the entire group. What's stopping us to be faster? I mean, technologies exist, we learned. Currently it's not in the gigawatt scale, but what's stopping us to be faster in adoption?
Thank you very much for your question. I think we all believe in this new economy. We would like them to reach then the targets, but we have to be realistic. If we go back 10 years ago when we started with PV, and then we saw we had a lot of incentives. 10 years ago, we started with the cost of the 3.5 euros per kilowatt hour. Today, we reached 30 euro cent, but we had a lot of incentives at the beginning. I think to answer your question, we need now more, we need incentives because there is a gap. And who would be then fund the gap? I think some countries are starting, if I will take the example of Germany with H2 Global, they will start again then to fund this transition phase. But this is very then costly. I think this is one point then to have then the incentives. This is very important to start then the first project on the one hand. On the other hand, we need you, industrialists, to develop as well very fast new solutions. We saw this is not only like, we'll give the example with CSP, with parabolic trough, to take then the same part and then to put it then together. We heard from our colleague, from Manuel, from Siemens, we have to adapt technologies. And I remember a few years ago when we started with the tower, with CSP, with the tower technology, we had to adapt, and it was totally then different to move from a 25 or 30 megawatt then solar tower to 200 or then bigger. I think from all the different parts, we will need time to adapt then the technologies. We need time to prepare then the markets. But what I learned from the past experience, we had a lot of projections when we spoke about then CSP, when we spoke about PV, the decrease of the costs, and then we spoke about 15 years and 20 years to reach this target of $30 cent or 30 euro cent per kilowatt hour. And we reach this target 10 years than before. I think it would be then the same with green hydrogen. We will be then fast in the next 10 decades, but we will need time to prepare then everything. Yeah, thank you. I don't know if somebody would like to add something.
So one way is, like said Badr, it's to have the price decreasing. Another way to go quick, we are reaching the COP26 very soon. And one thing is the carbon tax. Then the gap can be shorter. When you have carbon tax on the gray hydrogen, maybe it will help having this approach and going faster. One thing also is very important. Of course, technologies are evolving. We're looking at how things are going to be developed. But also, when you look what happened, as Badr said, about solar PV, the price, how it decreased, all the applications, and of course, we need to have also capacity building, people ready to do that. And some sectors, because the green hydrogen will be used for storage, for electricity, but also for mobility. And some companies are saying that in 2030, the plane will be using hydrogen. Some airways companies, they already mentioned that the technology should be here in 2030. We are looking that some trains are already running today with green hydrogen in Europe, and we're looking at all the mobility. Our cars can be using green hydrogen, so when the market also will be here, we can go faster. I think it's all things linked to the technology, to the price, but also to the policies that can be developed by countries and by the world, knowing what's going on in the climate change today.
If I may, do this like this. If I may add one aspect, I think that the real scale comes when the private sector has the means to invest and drive these projects as IPPs. So now we see this in solar, where it's now really ticking. We really got the tipping point, and it scales. The interesting thing that we have this time, it's different than with solar, because we have these IPPs already around. You know, they're all sitting there, they are hungry. Yeah? They say, oh, I can develop renewables, I will develop a hydrogen plant. So we are not short on people who are willing to take the risk, but I think we will still are, for maybe 10 years, we will be short on people who can actually take the risk, because they will ask the OEMs, can you give me a performance guarantee? Because they need it for their bank. Yeah, and so they need a performance guarantee from me, they need an offtake guarantee from whoever, from you, yeah? So they need an offtake, yeah, because what do you need to go to your banker and say, I'll invest 800 million in the project? You need a performance guarantee from me, you need an offtake from there, and then, by the way, the banker will ask, let's assume it's not an ammonia project. It has something to do with CO2. I see another thing that we need to sort out. If I'm using CO2 from any kind of CO2 point source, if I was the banker, I'd say, how sure are you that this CO2 source is still acceptable in 15 years? Nobody can tell you. So there is also an aspect of regulatory uncertainty that we have to get out of the system in order to make projects bankable. And I believe that we will still see a lot of the large ones struggle to get to the point that you actually have it ready for signature. Yeah? And this may take longer than we think. On the other hand, if it doesn't take longer, I tell you, we will have problems from the OEM sides to supply to all this demand. Yeah? So we need to get this all in sync.
From a electrolyzer producer side, is it a membrane that where scarcity exists at the moment, or is it basically just the engineering resources that go into each project that is slightly different? So would there be enough membranes available if it would scale tomorrow? Or what is the scarcity there?
From a manufacturing perspective, to get people trained to put this together, not so complicated. It's like building any other factory. Give me 3 years, it runs. Okay? Give me less than 3 years, it's not going to run. Anything, yeah? If I want to build now, what I did, medium voltage substations, a factory for that, yeah? It takes me 3 years, no matter what. Electrolyzer would be the same, yeah? Because you need time to develop the land, to put the factory, to train the people, get the quality under control. 3 years, yeah? The supply chain, I'm not that so sure yet, because the supply chain input, yeah, because you need your membranes, you need your coatings, yeah, exactly. Plus, if you go one step back, the supply of the precious metals that we are currently using. So there's still a bit of uncertainty where I'm not sure where the bottleneck's going to be, but there will be bottlenecks. And as now the demand is picking up, there will be more supply available. There are a lot of companies that we never had on the radar that contact us and say, hey, by the way, we can supply your membranes. And we're like, oh, I didn't know. Yeah. So now we start talking. Maybe they cannot supply the membrane in the way how we want it, but give us 3-4 years time. They will manage. Yeah. At the same time, there is a finite supply of precious metals. This we can only fix by reducing the amount of precious metals, either in a membrane or going to a complete next S-curve in technology that maybe works without platinum, iridium. Let's assume that's also in the pipeline, yeah, 5, 10, 8 years, I don't know, but it's going to come. Yeah, so there are a couple of technological boundaries that we need to overcome in order to provide the scale. But there's a lot of things has to happen at the same time. Yeah.
My question was about people also, maybe to Mr. Moulin and Mr. Iken. How about our people and trained people in Morocco, especially engineers, technicians, and managers? As Frank said in the beginning, maybe there will be jobs, but how about training them? And maybe we can have a plan like to build up a career, and especially if this is a very growing industry. And it could be a lot of opportunities for people. So maybe some plans. Well, I'm talking about training because I'm really interested. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, this is very important. What we saw, I will again take the example of the PV sector. What we saw in the past, that our universities and engineering schools, they were able, and then very fast, to adapt the curricula and then to educate engineers. It was not a problem. I think we have more now to focus more on applied training, and this is why we decided then to have the support to build labs, to have as well this mutualized R&D platform, to be able then to use it, to have a lot of pilot projects, to be able then to train people, technicians, students, and so on. Training is very important, and we think that we are really then able then to do this when we have such kind of R&D facilities, to be able to use them for research and development, but on the same time to be able to use them to train people. Thank you.
That's the reason why in the green hydrogen cluster, universities are with us. That's why we had all the actors, the private sector, the public sector, the government, but also the universities. It's very important, and there's a commission dedicated to that in the cluster.
If I may, I will have a question to Frank, if possible. Yeah, I will make you speak, Frank. No, I have, since you are always at the avant-garde of creating those disruptive alliances, we are witnessing in green hydrogen mainly some, let's say, vertical alliances between exporting and importing countries, or potential exporting and what do you think about also horizontal? Because as Mr. Aiken said, there is room for everyone probably in this huge market. You are mentioning trillions of dollars economy in your slide, and then I think if it's some percentages, it will be enough for everyone. How do you see this horizontal, let's say, cooperation, or let's say competition? It's between cooperation and competition.
That's an interesting question. We were at the Danish event, Power to X, 2 days ago, and somebody suggested building another cartel, like an OPEC for hydrogen. I mean, most cartels, they actually fail because in the end people cheat. I mean, it always happens. So OPEC is a surprisingly successful cartel in the sense that it's still there. But you know, in terms of manipulating supply and demand and then fixing a price, which is typically what a cartel does, I don't think that will work for hydrogen. Of course, having a platform where people come together and you know, exchange things. I mean, one of the ideas that we've launched is actually still something vertical, but you know, maybe vertical and horizontal both, where Europe, which is 27 member states, basically gets into an accord with potential exporters. So you have an importer group, and you combine that with an exporter group. And the idea was that, and I don't have them in my mind, but there were like 10, let's say, topics where everybody would commit. For example, also training, There would be rolling forecasts in terms of, okay, what do we think next year, in 5 years, in 10 years will be the demand on the importer side, and then, of course, the exporters would do something similar, so you have that kind of exchange. You would have a mutual fund for investments, where everybody chips in, and that can go to places where it makes sense. So that is certainly something that I could see happen, which is also at the moment missing. I mean, we see, and it's fantastic that Germany signs MOUs with Saudi Arabia and UAE, but then Denmark comes, and then Sweden and Hungary, and then you get 27 of these things. Where Europe is basically one single market. It's an open. Europe should do that, and it shouldn't be 27 member states. So having a lot more coordination in this space is absolutely necessary. So I think you're right. I think there needs to be something done, but at OPEC, no.
Could probably be a good cartel, because the idea, it wasn't most about the negative side, but also it was a way to preserve those countries' interests, because having only horizontal or vertical, let's say, partnership could probably drive costs down, and then will minimize the value in also the exporting countries. So the idea is also to co-localize value, to have tech transfer, etc. So this kind of things could be the trade-off of this sort of alliances. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, thank you, Samir, for giving the floor. First of all, thank you so much for organizing this event. Seeing all these pictures makes me like a real proud Moroccan. So especially how Morocco is organized in terms of their structure to push renewable energy. So very happy. My name is Shokri. I am the Executive Vice President of Haldor Topsoe, Head of Green Hydrogen. Joined this company a couple of months ago. Referring to your question about scarcity, we have 3 electrolyzer companies on the row. You have them all at the Moroccan pavilion, right? So, and I don't think it's a problem of PEM or iridium scarcity. I think it's a much bigger challenge. I mean, how much energy do we need to get this electrification of the world in a very short time frame? It's 12 to 15 terawatt, right, of power. So if you would want to build windmills or solar plants, how much steel do you need in the coming years? What's the steel price today? So that's where I think, on the longer value chain, where the challenge is, and the installation and commissioning of everything. So because you will build a complete new infrastructure next to the current one, which is oil and gas based, right? So it's immense what the challenge is on global scale. That's the comment that I would like to make to you. I had the same question actually for this forum. Currently you have national oil companies that have a well in the garden, get the oil out and sell the oil for a specific price, maybe in an OPEC structure. But green hydrogen is democratizing the energy supply completely. So actually my question is, how will the value chain in the future would look like? Are we still buying green hydrogen or any derivatives, like Topsoe can supply everything between an electron and a molecule? You go to an oil company and you buy green hydrogen, or you buy ammonia, or you can just start your own production. I mean, we have various interesting conversations with airlines, with largest marine vessel companies. They say, either we go and buy, as we do currently, kerosene, but in this case, clean fuels like methanol, or we build something ourselves. And we don't need the oil company anymore as a middleman. So this is the question to this forum. How would you like? How do you envisage this value chain in the future?
Uberization of energy.
This might be maybe a question for NG. Then, when we speak about then the different development possibilities, how do you see this?
Manuel. How are you? Good to see you here. Well, it's a good question. Like I mentioned earlier, we strongly believe in decentralization. So that's a reality. We believe that more and more industries will become more independent. We are a large utility. It's a major threat to us as hydrogen and other sort of fuel are a threat to international oil companies. What we can see is that more and more industries are coming to see us to invest and develop local production of hydrogen. If you talk to steel manufacturers, is interested to have the access to green hydrogen in his own plant. The region here and some countries are still holding tight on vertically integrated power system. So they kind of don't like you to have your own power facility on your site. So countries like Egypt has a huge overcapacity, so they want you to use the power from the grid and not from your garden. So there are so many countries still thinking like that. So the decentralization in some part of the world is difficult. The UAE is also applying the same. You have one DIWA, you have one TAQA in Abu Dhabi, and you'll have to buy power, even if it's renewables, from them. So you might have the chance to have your own source of hydrogen on site, decentralized, but still you'll have to be connected to the grid, yeah, most likely. But maybe just a question also for taking the chance to have so many manufacturers, such a beautiful lineup, but still a big manufacturer part of the world is missing is Asian market. So we talked about enablers to accelerate, so definitely renewable, and we have seen in your slide, it's playing 50–60% of the cost. When I'm proposing an offer to an off-taker, because that's my problem, we are all waiting, as you say, to invest and develop projects. It's not easy because you need to find project finance for large projects, so very difficult to convince bank at the moment. But once we can demonstrate this, because we have experience, the power side is, I think, is moving fast enough to be competitive. But from the manufacturer electrolyzer side, there was in May a very provocative BNEF forecast and outlook. How is this serious that we can reduce the price so fast of electrolyzer coming from Asian market? Are you scared of having the same story that we have seen in the PV market 15 years ago that we all witnessed? It's just an open question for me. Are these just numbers? Is it a real threat? Or can we really count on this disruption? Because in that case, I will have many more off-takers to answer to my queries. Yeah.
I think there's no more direct question than this. Yeah, probably ThyssenKrupp or yeah, Siemens or Hadat Opso, yeah, please. Have you already started to manufacture in China? Because there are also some companies that have done some GVs in China. How do you see this?
So is there a scenario that the electrolyzer story ends like the PV story? Yes, there is. And the question is, this is now the let's say the European industry politics question. If you want to have a different outcome, then you have to change boundary conditions. And I had a German minister with me this week, and I asked him exactly the question. I said, what's the boundary condition that we changed since PV? And I can't tell you which one changed. So why do we expect a different outcome? Because the actual numbers that I see, so I always have a problem with BNEF, because I always would get these numbers that they calculate, but the direction must be right, yeah. And if I look at if you look at the product I showed you, yeah. When I saw that the first time, I'm an industrial engineer, I'm not a chemist. I don't care much about electrochemistry. I saw the amount of steel and pipes, and I asked my own guys, I said 30% cost out tomorrow. And since then, they hate me. But that's the truth. I mean, look at the picture. Sure, we can get 30% of the cost out. I mean, I don't want to work for this company anymore if we can't. Of course you can. Yeah, by improving the design, by scaling up your supply chain, by scaling up the production capacities to get the cost of value addition out of this thing. Because currently we produce this in more or less, okay, it's a bit bigger than a garage, but it would fit in a garage. Yeah, so you don't need a lot of people and assets to produce what we can produce today. And that is nothing to other manufacturing sites that we run. Yeah? So we know how to scale this up by factor 10, 20, 50. Yeah? It's possible, but so far there is also not a demand, or at least a stable demand from the market that allows to train 100 people or to spend 50, 60 million on equipment, because this equipment tomorrow would be idle, and it doesn't work that way. So that's why I'm advocating this tit for tat thing so much. And we have to go through that, and we have to make sure that we don't choke on the way. So now back to the China question. These guys work differently. Yeah, they work with overcapacities because it's possible. Yeah, because there's a different system that's applied, and I'm not sure. I don't know how it's going to end. Yeah, if Europe wants to spend a lot of taxpayer money on importing green hydrogen and derivatives, we have to ask ourselves if this is allowed to come from a Chinese alkaline electrolyzer.
Before waiting the answers of the other colleagues, bring us to also the interest of having this, let's say, sustainable alliances where we can co-localize values together and also protect jobs in the region as well. Because this also will imply that technology providers will give up some exactly. Technology, and it will create an equilibrium rather than offset all the production elsewhere.
And besides protecting jobs and all these kind of things, yeah, would it be good for the planet if now China floods the world market with cheap electrolyzers? Yes. So.
I don't know if there is another. Yep.
I don't know either how the market will develop, but that's where the fun part is, right? So eventually, electrolyzer will be commoditized, period. It's a matter of time, right? Prices needs to go down through the entire value chain. The key element in this is to not sell one single product into the value chain, because then you will be squeezed out, obviously. The key challenge is to provide a full offering, have a full offering where you might need to partner with other suppliers and until the off-taker, right? And that's where you will make the difference, I think. If you, we are now building a 500 megawatt electrolyzer manufacturing plant. Definitely it will be in Europe, but we're now thinking of building a 5 gigawatt plant. And we don't know where it comes, but we will follow the market definitely. So, but we see definitely also Australia, China as main markets. So very open how we would organize ourselves. I mean, maybe we go to China together, right? So no problem in that sense.
We are running a little bit behind schedule, but probably before that, I would give a last question to Rodrigo in order to give us, you didn't have enough time to go through the slides. As a consultancy who worked a little bit on the multiple regions, how do you see the similarities and differences between the regions and where it could happen first, probably, or?
Thank you very much.
I think it's okay.
Okay. So we see, even if there are many differences, especially on the upstream side, due to the natural resources, we see three big archetypes across the different projects that happen everywhere. You have a small scale local project based in, especially in the mobility sector, in which it's usually very supported from the public sector because you need to aggregate demand, and it's usually a demonstrator project. We have seen lots of those projects in Europe. But also in this region, we have actually collaborated in a couple of them. Then we see a second archetype, a little bit larger, is medium scale, industry-based, in which you have a mix between private and public sector. And you have the large scale, international, usually ammonia export, that you also see them across the world. So in the end, it's true that the value chain of hydrogen is extremely complex. You have lots of questions and things to decide, but the type of projects in the end are very, very similar. And you see copies of projects across the world. That's on the similar side. What things are different? While in this region, GCC, and also could be applied to Morocco, you have extremely low cost for the renewable generation. You have a lot of land, so the possibility of getting an extremely low price is real. So you can be extremely competitive. What happens if you are extremely competitive? That you can manage to export a lot. So then you don't mind going to a solution of transport. So you don't mind separating the value chain. That's something that happens here. In Europe, you are not that competitive on price. So either you create a green valley, that we could have a long discussion about green valleys because it's a very complex thing. But either you have a green valley in which you are very close to the off-taker, or it doesn't work. So for me, those are the main, as I say, the main similar thing is that the archetypes are very similar, but they are very different between regions, the level of integration of projects.
Thank you very much. You'd like to? Okay, so we would probably save the remaining questions to the World PTX Summit, where we would like to welcome you in person in Marrakesh. That would be really our pleasure. I would like to thank all the speakers and also the people who were here today. I would like also to thank Stéphane Aver, who has connected from home. And I would like also to thank the Avancen team for hosting us and making these things easier to us. And last but not least, especially my colleagues, Muhsin, Ayoub, Nouhaila, Ilham, and Osama, who were really working really hard. They haven't slept this night to make this thing really a success. And thank you very much to all. Thank you.